Right, I think we are good to go. So, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this talk on CSR is dead. Long live social value. I've got my little stopwatch here because I could talk about social value for days and days and days. So what I want to do is keep it to about 20 minutes and then give you guys the opportunity to ask any questions, discussion, anything like that. So my name's Rob Wolfe. First of all, I'm the managing director of an organization that I founded called CHY Consultancy, which I'll go on in a little bit more detail in a bit. So what are we going to cover? So it's a bit of a provocative title, CSR is dead. So first of all, we're going to discuss why I think CSR is dead, when I decided that CSR was dead, and more than that, who killed it. So that's what we're going to be talking about. And then we're going to go into a little bit about social value, what it means, what does it mean for your business, what does it mean, why is everybody talking about social value? Over the last few years, we've seen a huge increase in discussions and conversations around social value. We've seen government policy, we've seen European policy. So why is everybody talking about it? And what can you do as a business, or what can you do with your clients to help support them in their social value? And as I said, then we'll go on to a bit of Q&A. So firstly, a very, very brief introduction to CHY Consultancy. So we were formed in 2006 up in Leeds. It was in essence because, like most core cities in the UK, Leeds suffers from what we call a kind of donut of deprivation that surrounds the city centre. And at that time, there was billions and billions of pounds coming into Leeds as part of their regeneration, private sector investment. And I was basically given a park bench and a laptop to go away and work out how we can leverage this investment to actually look at the social value that that investment creates, what the local authorities now call inclusive growth. So how do we make sure growth benefits everybody in society? And the reason for the word Care Bear is, believe it or not, and I'm very glad that the sector's moved on, but when I first started in 2006, I was introduced at conferences like this as the Care Bear. I was introduced as the person that did the fluffy stuff, the person that cared about people. God, that's awful, isn't it, that I actually care about people? And it was very much done through trying to encourage people to do the right thing. It was encouragement and coercion. But then, moving on 10, 15 years later, we now have legislation. There's government legislation. There's local authority legislation. We also see a huge, and just here today, the exhibitors here talking about ESG, talking about, you have organizations like B Corp, you have companies that are benefiting from being more socially responsible. So that we've moved from this kind of encouragement and coercion into a kind of cultural change in the way that people are making decisions in businesses. The other side of things, we are a small organization, and I've had a few chats with people and exhibitors today. We rely heavily on collaboration. We rely heavily on learning from other people. My background is working in prisons, working in pupil referral units, and I've taken that kind of grassroots regeneration. What I don't want to do is create a policy that then just gets stuck on a wall and ticks a box and everyone's all right with it. So hence, we go on to CSR. So, first of all, corporate social responsibility. It came a term that was more commonly used in the 90s through to the 2000s. But the problem that I have with corporate social responsibility is that most of it is PR-led. I got so fed up with contacting businesses and them saying, you need to speak to our marketing department. You need to speak to our PR department. It's not about marketing in PR. Yes, you will get good PR and good marketing out of it if you do it well, but that should not be the driving force. And as the image sort of depicts here, it's more than cake sales and skydives and bike rides. Social value is about how you support society, and that is a much broader piece of work. So who killed it? Volkswagen. I'm presuming that a lot of people remember the Volkswagen scandal back in about 2012, 2013, where they were falsifying the environmental emissions given out by their diesel cars. It was a global thing. They were taken to court all over the world. What a lot of people don't know is the same year that they were being taken to court, they won environmental awards and corporate social responsibility awards throughout the globe. They were being given gold stars for their efforts in CSR. I think what that tells us is that they were very good at their PR, they were very good at their marketing, but when it actually came down to the decisions that they make in their business, it was nowhere to be seen. And that's the difference between CSR and social value. As if it didn't prove it enough, I've just got that image up there as well. So what is social value? I've got this slide of the skydive. There was a wonderful, wonderful piece of work that was done a few years ago, and they investigated charity skydives. Now, I'm not going to pick on anybody here today, or I might. How many people have done a charity skydive? Anybody? Okay, we've got a couple. So, they did a bit of what's called a social return on investment methodology, which is basically when you monetize the value. Social value has to take into account the positive and the negative effects of your decisions. It also is a holistic approach. So they did investigations into charity skydives. For every £1 raised for charity through jumping out of planes, it costs the NHS £13.75, putting people back together after injuring themselves by jumping out of planes for charity. So if you weren't injured, you're one of the lucky ones. So if you look at it from a holistic perspective, charity skydives actually have a negative impact on society because it's costing the NHS money rather than, and I'm not saying they're a bad thing, I'm just saying this is the approach to social value. So how do we define social value? So within CHY Consultancy, we were delivering social value before it was termed social value. And we have the, I suppose you could call it the kind of corporate definition over here. But there are some things that are important in that definition. It's meeting the current needs of the industry as well as the communities in which you work. So it's as much about your internal colleagues, your internal employees and the way you run your business as it is about the communities in which you work. So if you're building buildings, the communities where you're building that building. In your head office, what are you doing for that local community? So it's as much about your internal as your external. And the thing is about social value is everyone says it's very complex. At the baseline of all of social value is we're trying to improve people's health and well-being. We want people to be happier. How we make people happier is dependent on what social value strategy you come up with. It could be by creating jobs. It could be by improving people's skills. It could be by having a more inclusive environment. Whatever it is that you're doing, at the baseline of social value is it making people happier? So why is everybody talking about it? I seem to like P's in this presentation, by the way. There's a lot of words that begin with P. I'm not quite sure how I've done this or why. So the reason why everyone's talking about social value at the moment, government policy, local authority policy. So businesses are having to answer questions about their social value. So when they want to build buildings, when they want to win services or contracts with the public sector, it is now mandatory that 10% of that contract value is scored on social value. So that's obviously increased people talking about it. What is it? How do we do it? What do we have to do? The second side of things is that purpose-driven businesses are being proven to be more profitable. So if you look at businesses, big ones like Patagonia, they are selling and PR and marketing themselves as socially responsible businesses. Whether their focus is on the environment, whether their focus is on homelessness, there is a drive for purpose. And I think that if COVID-19 did anything that was good, which I'm not saying any of it was good, But it was the fact that suddenly people started to look a little bit more about the communities in which they live. People started thinking more about just profit. People started to think about how we look after each other, whether that's in work or outside of work. So the whole purpose side of things. There's facts to say that graduates coming out of university, over 70% of them are interested in what the social purpose of the business that they are wanting to go and work for is. They are asking those questions. That's important to them. And from my perspective, that is a brilliant thing. So the last one is about profit. This is simple business. We've worked with a huge amount of businesses, SMEs, tech businesses, finance firms, construction businesses. If you do social value properly, it increases your profit, pure and simple. So it increases your bottom line, it increases your profit, and people are beginning to realize that. So what does this mean? What does it mean for a business like yours? So, there are policies to answer. There are purpose that your colleagues will want to discuss. Social value is about bringing all of that together, looking at your products and your services. So to provide a practical example, we've worked with a marketing tech firm, and we actually, during COVID, we used their marketing and tech platform to generate social good about improving the health and well-being of young people who were stuck at home. That product has now been sold across Europe as a vocational training tool to improve the well-being of students. That marketing firm, they used to sell Ariana Grande and Anthony Joshua and Disney and Sony, but the technology they had could be repurposed in a social way. So look at your products, look at the people that are working there. And the simple change, when we talk to businesses, yes, it's about profit, but it's actually about value. So of that profit, how valuable is that? And we come to the value-based decision making, which is the utopia of social value, which in essence just means that when you're embarking on a product development, when you're embarking on research and development, when you're launching a new service, a new product, working with a new client, is that you don't just consider the financial, you also consider the social. That comes into the conversation, it comes into those discussions at all levels within an organization. I sometimes equate it to health and safety. I remember when health and safety and everyone was talking about it's gone mad, it's all gone crazy. Now it's just part of everybody's job. And that's where we want to get social value. It's just part of how we make decisions. And it can seem very overbearing when you start to look at what social value is. How do we go about doing this? Well, the first way is you look at the different themes within social value. So whichever framework you're working to, whether it's the government social value model, whether it's a local authority's inclusive growth strategy, whether it's going for B Corp status, any strategy that you are looking, or framework that you are looking to answer, will have these themes in it. So work out what you can do, not what the framework is telling you to do. Start with yourselves. Where can you make a difference? And then apply that and articulate it across the themes. So are there ways in which your collaboration with enterprise, if you're a tech firm, can you share your technology with local charities? Can you share your technology with other budding entrepreneurs? Are you a job creator? Now, we don't just want job creation, we want well-paid, sustainable jobs. So look at the way you employ your staff. Is it inclusive? Are you getting the most productivity out of your teams? How do you treat your supply chain? I'm known as being a bit disruptive. And on the supply chain kind of things, if anybody's worked with the public sector, they have a 30-day guarantee that you will, on invoice, you'll be paid within 30 days. And they put that in all of their public sector contracts. Ironically, they don't pay within 30 days. So you're having to pay your supply chain within 30 days as part of the contract, but the government don't pay you within 30 days, so you're the one taking the burden of the cash flow. So anyway, that's a slight side point. But look at how you treat your suppliers. What you can learn is their knowledge transfer. Don't think about volunteering. Think about how you can support businesses. Are you a marketing firm? Can you help charities? Can you help smaller businesses with their marketing? Is that some part of your social value offer? How can you do that? How do you interact with the local community? What are those community needs that you are helping to address? So I am, again, apologies for being so blunt, but I am fed up with people saying things like, well, we want to end child poverty. I am not sure if anyone's brave enough, then fair enough, go ahead. But I'm not sure that anybody would put their hand up and go, I don't want to end child poverty. So it's about working out what you can do as a business, working out where your influence lies. So Zoopla is a really good example of this. They're a tech firm, they're a data firm. But what they do is they share all of their data about housing and social housing and affordable housing throughout the UK, and they then share that with Shelter. And Shelter use that data to campaign for government for better activities and interventions to prevent homelessness. So Zoopla have worked out that their core business can support eradicating homelessness. Whereas if you are an organisation that makes coffee cups, you're probably not going to be able to eradicate homelessness. So do you know what? Just leave that to one side. Think about what you can do, where you can make that change. Then think about what resources you need. Now, usually that's not money. Usually that's just people. So who do you need and what do they need to do? What processes, what strategies do you have in place to be able to deliver that? And then finally, how do you measure the success of what you're doing? Social value is about change. So I don't care that you've created 1,000 jobs. That's wonderful. What I want to know is what those jobs were, who secured them. Has it actually made a difference to that local community by creating those jobs? Or has it just displaced employment from somewhere else? So the net gain is actually zero. So social value is about change. So how to make an impact? As I've said before, we have to think about your operational value. So internal value. How do you create social value in your staff? So simple things. Best practice is that every employee should be given a day off per year to volunteer. That's a great policy to have. How many of your staff are actually taking it up? What are they actually doing? Is the CEO going to paint a school hall? That's an utter waste of their time. They could be offering really good business advice to budding entrepreneurs. That's a much better use of their time. I always got on a rant about lawyers cleaning canals. The amount of people that need legal advice, yet as a team building day, as part of their corporate social responsibility, they'll go and clean a canal. Think about the value and the change that you want to make. Think about your product or project value. Think about how you're developing products. What social impacts can that have? How does it have an impact on people? If you're delivering a service, whether that's building a new building, building houses, whether that's developing a tech product like I've just discussed, how can we repurpose it? How can we put in social value into the development of those products? And if you get those two right, you then get what we call external value. This is about your legacy. This is about when it becomes a culture of decision making within your business. And this is when you get that external value. You might have partnerships with local charities. You might have long-term, not charity of the year, but a collaboration in the same way that you'd have a collaboration with any other sort of business. How do you actually take what you do and then magnify it? How do you extend that legacy? So what can you do? This is the bit of self-promotion, but there is a hell of a lot of information out there. So there was a bit of research done recently, and it is a bit of a back of a fag packet, so I apologize for this, but social value 3 years ago, there were about kind of 50 or so people on LinkedIn that said that they were social value, or they had social value in their job title. There's now up to 1,000. So there are lots and lots of people now doing this. So there's lots of resources, blogs, training, all of it is out. Go and find out what you can. Come and talk to us. We're just on a stand over there, S101 I think it is. S110, I've just been corrected. So come and talk to us. Talk to people. We say one of the simplest things about social value is have it as an agenda item on meetings. If you just have it there, if it's considered, then people will want to start contributing. So people will start thinking about it, and then things might happen. So talk to your colleagues, talk to your communities, talk to your family and friends about social value and what impact that can have. Come up with ideas. I'm a massive Star Wars fan, and I haven't used it in this presentation today. But with, Yoda said, do or not do, there is no try. That's what I think is, social value. People put it in the too difficult pile, so they never do anything. Try something. If it doesn't work, that's fine. Work out what went wrong and try again. And then build your networks. So work with local voluntary, community, social enterprise organizations to build your capacity. As I've said, there are lots of conferences, social value specific conferences where you can learn. You can learn from other businesses, learn from experts, collaborate, be creative. And that's when social value gets at the heart of your businesses, of how you actually operate. And social value should be, and I'm coming to the end now, but social value should be it should be another item on the agenda. So as much as you discuss and focus on finance, as much as you discuss the quality of your products, your sales plan, your marketing plan, your operational plan, your recruitment policy, social value shouldn't be secondary to any of them. It should be as equal as all of those. And it should also feed in to those different policies, to those different strategies. And if you do want to work with the public sector, or you are already working with the public sector, if you haven't done yet, you will have to answer questions on this. So it's really important that if you want to grow your business into the public sector, this is something you will need to focus on and answer, get processes in place and strategies in place. So why should we bother? My friend the Care Bear. Yes, it is about doing the right thing. It is about caring. It is about doing the right thing. And sometimes I find it really difficult to understand why people don't get that. It's simple. But actually more than that, as I've said before, it's about talent. People want to work for purpose-driven businesses. Businesses that do more than just the finance. They do more than just sell more products. They want to work for purpose-driven. They want to be valued. And part of that comes from that purpose. So you want to attract the best talent, you need to embed social value within your organization. As I've said before, either accidentally or intentionally, it drives growth. I was talking to someone earlier, and they have set up a lending platform for family and friends. So a way of taking the emotion out of the bank of mum and dad or the bank of sister or whatever it may be. But what they've been inundated with is organizations saying, well, rather than giving them a loan, can we actually give them cash? So rather than saying, well, I need a loan to do a paramedics course, why don't we actually get a company to sponsor that person and pay for the paramedics course? So unintentionally, they've opened up a whole new area of business for them in a socially driven way, and that is going to drive growth. And there is a little bit of the fluffy stuff. This is Ubuntu, which is an African philosophy, and this is at the heart of what CHY does. This is at the heart of social value. It's about making people happy, but it is about getting that mentality of I am because we are. So it's getting a broader look, whether it's your internal staff, whether it's the communities that you work in, understanding the impact that you have as a business, as an individual. Reframing that within your head is at the heart of all of social value. And CHY can help put processes in place, we can help put measures in place, we can help put all monitoring platforms, all of those sorts of things. But we're in the lucky position that if you don't actually want to change your culture, we won't work with you. because we want to support businesses. And our mission as CHY Consultancy is to close. That has been our mission since 2006. We don't want to exist. We shouldn't exist. We shouldn't have to tell people or help people do this. This should just be part and parcel of everyday business, and that's where we're trying to get to. And I've got about 24 years to get there. Thank you very much. So we do have 10 minutes if anybody has any specific questions. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to hear you, though, if I'm honest, over the hubbub. But does anybody have any questions? Or you can come across to our stand and ask me them there if you're a little bit shy about asking them in this context. It won't read. So the question was around charities sometimes have a challenge in demonstrating the impact that they have. So I used to work in the charitable, that's where CHY was born, in the charitable sector. And there are two sides to this. The first is that social value is about qualitative, the case studies, the stories, and the impact that you're having. But to meet with business needs and to meet and drive it forward through legislation, it has also become a quantitative. So I can, for instance, if I'd taken a survey before you all came in today and then took a survey as you walk out, I would be able to monetize how happy you are today and whether my talk has had an impact, and I would be able to put a pound sign on that. So charities, it's about looking at it from the business's perspective. And sometimes charities feel very uncomfortable doing that. But I think it is about saying, well, what does the company need? The company they need to fulfill a volunteering policy for a project they have. Whether their intention is good or whether it's just to tick a box, it doesn't matter. How can you use as a charity those volunteers? How can you speak their language to say, we can support you to fulfill your requirements on this contract? And then what you do is once you have that resource, that's when you can do what you always do as a charity, which is creating that impact. So I think when I used to work for a charity, I used to work with, I hate this word, but disadvantaged young people. And they always used to ask me about fundraising. And I would say, so you want me to go to a corporate and say, you're currently fundraising for lost puppies, and you want me to go and say, right, but can you help these drug addicts that hang around at the bus stop? It's a really difficult sell. So it's about repurposing that and saying, well, actually, what do we need for those young people? We need jobs, we need skills, we need long-term support. So how can the businesses help fulfill that need, not trying to sell them that they should be helping sort of young offenders? It's speaking in their language, which is sometimes an uncomfortable thing to do. Okay, if there are no more questions, please come and see us. As I said, we're in a place just over there. And if you want to follow up on anything, if you go to the stand, there's a QR code with my contact details on it. I would love to discuss this more. As I said, I could talk about this subject for days. Thank you very much for your time, everybody.